अब दिख रहा है कि नहीं?
यस सर।
सर।
यस
यस सर, दिख रहा है। अब भी पहले भी दिख रहा था।
ओके,
सर शोइंग
इट इज शोइंग ना.
यस
यस
सर।
यस
So
यस
you
सर।
you can see about among the landlord are those people who have land, who and they are, you can put them in the category of medium farmers or big farmers who have certain savings. They lend money. So in 1961 it was 0.9%, 71 it was 8.6%, 81 4%, 91 4%. Again in 2002 it declined to 1%. Then agricultural money lender. I will tell you what these are later on. In 1951, the percentage was 24.9%. In 1961, it was 45.9%. In 1971, 23.51%. In 81, it was 8.3%. In 91, it was 9.4%. And in 2002, again, it increased to 19.6%. Professional money lenders. It was 44.8% in 51, 14.9 in 61, 23.1 in 71, 13.8 in 71, 81 it was 8.3%, 91 9.4%. It increased to 19.6% in 2002. Traders and commission agent. They were also lending around 5 to 6 or 7%, but in 2002 it was only 2.6%. Relatives and friends also lend money. It was 14.2% in 51. It gradually decreased to 6-7%. In 2002 it was 7.8%. Now, what is important is you come to non-institutional agencies again. In 1951, it was almost all, more than 90% of the loan or credit or udar was given by the non-institutional agencies. And it declined to around 42%, 42.9% in 2002. Now, the top line, that is institutional agencies. Now, let us see the difference between what is the difference between institutional and non-institutional. You see, institutional can be is those organizations, whether it is a bank, whether it is a lending agency, whether it is non-financial corporation, any kind of agencies which are registered body, which are governed and regulated by the laws of the country, by the government. But non-institutional agencies, they were agencies which is not organized, which is not actually governed or controlled by the government. But government has come out with certain regulations later on in the recent. These are the differences. Two 2000 which was provided rural or agricultural credit was cooperative societies. You see, cooperative started in India in 1904. In 1904, cooperative started in India, and they were not playing very significant role. So you can say that they were only lending few percentage or 5 or 6% or 7% of loan to the agriculture sector. And it carried on till 1947, when India gained independence. When RBI conducted all a rural credit survey, sometimes in 1951, then in 1953, they found out that there is a massive demand or need of agricultural credit in agriculture sector. That does not mean that India did not have banks, commercial banks at that time. There were banks in India. Banking system was developed in India, but the irony was that most of the banks were located or concentrated in urban areas or industrial areas. Banks were in the private hand. They were owned by private owners, industries, big private owners. They were interested. The motive of the bank, the objective of the bank is to earn profit. Now, banks work on the principle, the basic principles of the bank in operation is that when the people of the country, citizen of the country, they deposit their money in any branch of the bank, then that money which we deposit is given to other persons as loan to carry out their work or business, whatever that may be. Now, if banks are, because the banks presume, there is a basic assumption that suppose Mr. X, a person Mr. X, he deposits 5,000 rupees in a bank, then the bank assumes that he will not withdraw or he will not need all the 5,000 rupees and not withdraw it in one go, in one time. Mr. X may need some amount of money and he may withdraw a small portion from time to time. So the bank can safely conclude that out of 5,000, they can keep aside 2,000 rupees for the requirement and need of Mr. X when he demands money, and the rest 3,000 they can lend it to someone in order to earn profit by charging a rate of interest. There are many persons who deposit money. All the persons will not withdraw the money simultaneously. So under this principle, on this principle, the banks functions and operates and they make profit. Because people who have got money, who deposit in money, they must know about the functioning of the bank. They must be assured that their money is safe. There is no risk. For that, they must be aware of this fact. And educated people were there in the urban area. In rural areas, people did not have much money. Even if they had money, they were not going far distance to find a bank, locate a bank. Everybody could not come to the cities to open an account in the bank. Opening an account was also not very easy. Even today it is not easy. So in rural areas, when there was no bank, the people needed money, they needed credit. The option left was on the non-institutional agencies, and the most important among them was money lenders. Money lenders are of two kinds, agricultural money lenders and professional money lenders, and it is a very exploitative system where people, innocent farmers, small farmers, marginal farmers, they were exploited to that extent that they were charged around 20 to 50% rate of interest. And once you have taken loan from a money lender, then it is said that you can never repay, even if you pay all interest which is due on you and the principal. They will manipulate the ledgers, the book, and you will be in debt for ages. And in that process, money lenders eye your land and they will take over your land or confiscate your land or house or your animals or whatever assets you have. So this was the problem during the days of decade of 1960s, when the performance of agriculture was very poor because of Indochina War, because of Pakistan War in 1965, and because of drought conditions which prevailed in India for 2-3 years. And the end result was that there was a huge shortage of food grains in India, and it was discussed at that time, it was felt at that done in order to increase the agricultural production. Yielding varieties of seed came into existence, which was accompanied with a package of program. That is, it required fertilizer, it required pesticides, it required irrigation. And time was very sensitive, so it required agricultural equipment or machinery, and all this required money. Now, nobody would be agreeable to borrow huge amount of money from the money lenders or non-institutional sources. So, Green Revolution could not have succeeded without making an alternative arrangement of providing credit or loan at a low rate of interest, and it should be provided near the farmers, that is near to the villages. So there was a need to do something. And in that context, in 1969, Indira Gandhi, Srimati Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister of the country, and she decided to take over private banks, nationalize it, turn it into government banks. They were economic advisors at that time also. There was I.G. Patel, who was ex-governor, who held the position of governor of RBI. He was an advisor. He was a young man who had come from London School of Economics. He was invited to be an advisor to the government of India. And Indira Gandhi called I.G. Patel. If you read the autobiography of I.G. Patel, he said that I was summoned by the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and she told me that she is going to nationalize the private banks. I.G. Patel said that advise her not to do this. It will wreck the whole economy. This is not a correct step. But Indira Gandhi said, okay, I will think over. And next day, in the night, I.G. Patel told Indira Gandhi that please don't go forward. Don't nationalize the bank. Let it be in the private hands. They are doing good. But next day, in the Lok Sabha, in the parliament, Indira Gandhi moved a resolution, a bill, to nationalize the bank, and 14 private banks were nationalized in 1969. Now, after which was no more a private bank, it became a nationalized bank or government bank. The government ordered nationalized bank to open their branches in rural areas, in far-flung areas, and provide loan and credit to the farmers at a reasonably low rate of interest. This is why you can see that the share of institutional agencies increased 14.8% to 29.8%, but in 1981 it increased to 61.2% because the banks, 14 banks were nationalized. Not only this, in 1975, 7 years later than 1969, 6 years later than 1969, 196 new kind of government banks or national banks were opened, known as RRBs, regional rural banks. 196 banks with branches of more than 8 or 9,000 were opened in rural areas to provide easy loan to the rural areas, including agriculture. Again, in 1980, 6 more private banks were nationalized by the government. So in all, by 1980, 20 banks were nationalized as well as 196 regional rural banks were opened in order to provide loan or credit easily to the agriculture sector and as well as the rural sector. Now, understand another factor here only, that what was the demand or need of the amount of credit in the rural areas on all India basis was estimated by Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank of India was looking after agricultural finance or rural credit or agricultural credit country. Reserve Bank of India used to give money to the state governments, to the commercial banks and regional rural banks in order to provide loan to the farmers. Now, Reserve Bank of India is the central bank of the country. Its basic objective, its basic operation of functioning is to have a control of the inflation prevailing in the country. Inflation means price rise. There should not be very high price rise because it will affect the citizen or the consumer. So they were following, using or monitoring the monetary policies. And the second objective, most important objective of Reserve Bank of India was to see that rate of interest is within limits. It is not very high, it is not very low. For a smooth functioning of the economy, inflation and rate of interest are two very important and basic components. A country which loses control over inflation and rate of interest is ruined. It has been seen, if you see the economic history of the world, several countries have passed through this phase. So, Reserve Bank of India has other functions, many functions. So, Reserve Bank of India decided in consultation with the government that a new organization, a new institution must be established which can solely look after the rural or agricultural credit in the country. So, an autonomous institution of Reserve Bank of India, you can say, known as NABARD, was opened in 1982. NABARD full form is National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. Now, since 1982 onwards, all the rural credit and agricultural credit is monitored and provided by NABARD only. Reserve Bank of India does not directly intervene in it, though NABARD, you can say, is a part of Reserve Bank of India. It is an autonomous body. One of the directors of Reserve Bank of India is a member of NABARD board. Government also plays a role. So, NABARD is functioning from 1982 onwards. These all, NABARD, regional rural banks, commercial banks, and cooperative societies, they all are in our course, this year's syllabus. But if you understand the basic framework, then I don't think there will be much problem. So why nationalization of banks was important and how it was very effective after 1969 with nationalization of banks. But gradually from 1991, when economic reforms were implemented in the country, when we went for the liberalization, globalization and privatization policy, there was a clear-cut shift, and we can see that the percentage of institutional agencies in agriculture sector or credit or rural credit has declined from 64% in 1991 to 57.1% in 2002. And the non-institutional agencies share increased from 36% in 1991 to 42.9%. If you have short-term credit. For short-term credit, if you just want to cultivate your land, sow your crop, reap your crop, then you may need a small amount of money. But if you want to buy agricultural equipment, if you want to buy cattle, if you want to buy a pumping set, then you require more money. So if you are given more money, then you get more time to repay it. Then the long-term credit. Farmers also require finance for a long-term period of more than 5 years, just for the purpose of buying additional land or for making any permanent improvement on land like sinking of wells, reclamation of land, horticulture, etc. Thus, the long-term credit requires sufficient time for the repayment of such loans. Now, what is the purpose of loan? What are the objectives of loan? There are three kinds of three purposes, three objectives of loan. One is productive loan for productive purposes. The second is for consumption purposes. And the third is for non-productive purposes. Now, this is very important. For productive purposes, anyone can give loan, whether institutional or non-institutional, because they know that the farmer is going to invest this money, he will earn something and will be in a position to repay back. Productive loan is for increasing the agricultural production. So it is not very difficult. Institutional agencies, banks, commercial banks or RBs or cooperative credit societies or money lenders, anyone will be easily willing to lend money for productive purposes. Then the second purpose is for consumption. Now I told you that small farmers, marginal farmers or poor farmers, most of the farmers in India are poor. Or most.
Sir, I have a question.
Ask.
How many banks nationalized in present time?
Ask Prime Minister Modi. Nobody knows.
What means, sir?
Ask Prime Minister Modi or Finance Minister of the country how many banks they are going to nationalize and in what way they will nationalize. We do not know. Government just gives news that it is going to nationalize. Government will nationalize 5. How many? Government will privatize 5 nationalized banks. When it will do, we do not know. They can do it today, they can do it tomorrow. They don't have a clear-cut plan. Understand? And they do not say that we are going to privatize. They say we are going to monetize government banks. So such questions which you ask is not relevant for this class. So kindly ask a relevant question.
Sir,
Nobody will be able to answer you how many banks have been, because it keeps on changing every day. Yes.
sir, please still about marginal small and big farmer percentage.
What? Marginal, small?
सर
Farmer?
परसेंटेज मतलब कितने परसेंट मार्जिनल फार्मर है, स्मॉल फार्मर है, बिग फार्मर? कंफ्यूजन।
मैंने एक आंकड़ा दिया था, हिंदी मीडियम को लगता है पहले क्लास नहीं किया तुमने। I have given a table where I have given the percentage of small farmers, marginal farmers, and what was the percentage of land they were holding. So in a rough way, approximately, if you add the small and marginal farmers, a farmer who has less than 2 hectares of land, they constitute around 85% of the farmers in the country, 85 to 86%. And they own around 25 to 30% of the land, 24 or 25% of the land in the country. So you go back to that, refer to that table which I have gave you, and I have spent time, lots of time on discussing that. And I told you that this is very important. If anyone wants to study and understand agriculture in India, then he has to know what is the composition of farmers in India, how much are small, much are marginal, what percentage is medium, and what percentage is big farmer. Big farmers are less than 1%. Around 0.56% are big farmers in the country. Rest are medium farmers. That is around 13-14% are medium farmers in the country. Anyway, so I was talking about productive purpose of loan, that is for productive purposes, where loan can be easily availed, anybody is ready to give. Then there is a loan for consumption purposes. A poor farmer, he has certain other needs also. He may get sick. Then how he will go to a doctor? For that he needs money. He may not have a good crop. The crop must have failed. So he needs to consume certain things. He needs money for that. Now he wants loan for that. He wants to borrow money for that. He may be having somebody's marriage in his family. And you know that even poor persons, they spend a lot of money on marriages. Because marriage is nothing but a showbiz. You have to show the world outside the society that you are having a lavish party for marriage. House, he will need money. Building house is not productive. This comes under unproductive area. There can be many more. If you are afflicted with a serious disease, then you need money to pay the nursing home and the doctors. Most of the nursing homes in the big cities, if you conduct a study, you will find that 80% of the payments are made by the poor persons. They sell their land, they borrow heavily on the mortgage, their land, in order to pay the money for the disease which they wanted to be cured. If somebody wants to buy a cycle, cycle is a very old thing. He may want to buy a motorcycle, then the government will not give loan to a poor person because he does not have any land as security or collateral security. So this is a loan of unproductive nature. There can be so many of them. So consumption and unproductive loan almost intermingled. They can be common in the category of consumption also, and it can come under the category of unproductive also. But if you live in a society, if you
What's the nature of
what?
Sir, what is the nature of education loan?
It is a productive loan.
Productive.
If studies, then education loan is a productive loan according to the banks. But if a farmer approaches, small farmers, he approaches that he is not able to pay the fees of his kids who are studying in class 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or up to 12, and he is studying in an English medium school which have opened up like mushroom in most, then he will not get loan for that. But if you qualify for a medical profession, MBBS, for engineering, for MBA, and if you have got two guarantors, you may get a loan. If you want to go and study abroad, you can get loan from the banks, providing you have got two guarantors and you have got certain collateral security. So education loans are mostly to the tune of 10 lakh, 5 lakh, 15 lakh. How can a poor person even dream of 10 lakh, 15 lakhs taking loan to spend on his kids? It is just next to impossible. So from the agriculture point of view, education loan does not come. I don't think any small or marginal farmers will ever try to get education loan unless and until his kid is brilliant, he has qualified for a professional course in the country. In that case, he may get loan on the even a small piece of land. There are certain schemes of the government. There are certain institution itself. For example, if you get admission in Indian Institute of Management and you require a loan of 20 lakhs, the institution itself will provide you loan of 20 lakhs because they think that after completing the course, you will be paid, employed in a high salary job and you'll be able to repay their loan. So tomorrow we will continue after.
Sir, please explain monetary policy.
What is your name? First tell me.
Aditya. Aditya Kumar.
Aditya Kumar.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Aditya Kumar, wait for 3 years. When you pass your undergraduate classes and you take admission in PG, then there is a special paper which you will be taught for the whole year known as monetary policy. How can anyone explain monetary policy in 2 lines or 5 lines or in half an hour? For monetary policy, first you have to understand what is money. What is money supply? What is demand for money? So don't ask question out of context. If you are interested what is of monetary policy, here we don't need monetary policy. If you ask anything about agriculture,
was high at 9.6 say it in 1971, 1992, it grew 8. Sir,
What are you trying to?
on
What's a good name?
the monetary.
Okay. There was no institutional sources which was lending money or loan, providing loan to the agriculture and rural sector. Only one source was called, which was there in India from 1904 onwards, and to some extent the government, the state government used to give loan if there was a drought, if the crop failed or there was a hailstorm. They were providing very small portion of loan known as Takavi loans. So most of the loan was by the non-institutional sources. In 1969, 14 banks were nationalized, private banks. Now, the impact of when they were nationalized, they were ordered to open the banks in rural areas, in areas where agriculture is carried on. It takes time to establish a branch. So, in 1975, regional rural banks were opened. 196 regional rural banks were opened. The full impact of this nationalization of banks and opening of regional rural banks was felt in 1981. The data of 1981 shows that the percentage of institutional lending increased to around 68-69%. Again, in 1991, there was a new economic policy was adopted in India, which is known as economic reform or structural adjustment program. The agriculture sector was again neglected. One of the major changes was that there was a recommendation of a Narasimhan committee which says that agriculture sector should be charged higher rate of interest. When higher rate of interest was charged from agriculture or poor farmers, they avoided institutional. They again resorted to borrowing money from money lenders or non-institutional sources. That is why in 2002, the percentage of non-institutional increased to around 38%. Currently, it is around 42%. And when these banks, which we are talking about, that the government is going to privatize nationalized banks, in short time you will find, after say 5 or 6 years, if this policy continues, then the non-institutional share in providing loan to the agriculture and rural sector will increase to more than 50%. So these things depend on the economic policies which the government carries on as it with time. So I hope you understood something.
Yes, sir. So, sir, reason was a high rate of interest that was imposed.
No, the reason was not even only high rate of interest. The reason was that the government started focusing its attention on industries, on international trade. They neglected agriculture. So much so that when the India government came into power, Atal Bihari Vajpayee government came into power the second time, in spite of doing good works, they lost election. But Atal Bihari Vajpayee was defeated in 2004, and one of the reasons was that he gave the slogan, Shining India. In fact, India was not shining. India was in darkness. It was shining only on TV sets and newspapers. And it is said that NDA government, they neglected the agriculture sector. That was the reason why they lost the election. So, government after 2004, there was again directions to give loan at a lower rate of interest. I will let you know, I will tell you that the effective rate of interest was around 4% for a long period of time after 2004. Again, it has increased. Again, the farmers are in distress. Again, you can see there are agitations of farmers. Farmers are not foolish people that they are agitating. They are in distress. They are in crisis. Their income has not increased in comparison with the industrial sector or with the service sector. So, they want that they should get loan at a lower rate of interest and easily. You know that this year in the budget, the government said that 13 lakh crores of credit will be provided to the agriculture sector. At least they declared. How much is the requirement, how much actually it will be spent, we will see it later on.
Okay, sir.
So, okay, so we will meet tomorrow. Huh?
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.